Hi, everybody. It's Lori and Lawrence and Thomas back for part two, continuation from our discussion from last night, November 18th, and that was on November 17th. And we're just going to sort of pick up where we left off. Lawrence got shut down out of the Hangout last night because his computer all of a sudden started doing updates. And so tonight, hopefully, we won't have any of those kinds of problems. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening, and thanks for everybody being in the chat. And we'll just kick it off. So, Lawrence, last night we were talking about, toward the end, more about great circle roots and rhumb lines, and we were showing how it works on Google Earth on a globe, and how lines are curved on the globe, but when you straighten out the globe, the lines suddenly go straight again. And we were discussing that the globe is a mimicry of the flat Earth, and it's not the other way around. It's not that the flat Earth is mimicking the globe. So you've been doing some more investigating today with regards to some of the airline flights and who does and doesn't use great circle routes on what paths. So why don't we kick off with you talking about that some more?
Yeah, well, what kicked this off was when we did the map exercise last year. So if you're new to this channel, go back and you'll see the map exercise, which was how we arrived at the diamond-shaped map.
The map workshop is the name of that one.
Yeah, there's only Tiger Dan who's actually come up with gone through a map and actually worked out distances to between places to see whether they're the same as reality. And of course, that he had a meltdown after that, and he dropped out of the flat Earth. So you've had other maps being put forward by people, but not one, apart from ourselves, have gone to through the exercise of plotting where these airports or cities would be and measuring the distance. So you need to make a map to scale and measure it to see what the distance would be. So today, and look, when we did the diamond-shaped Calignan map, there was lots of places that were the distance was exact. It was a pencil head out. The majority were between 5 and 10% out, and there was just one, which was London to Australia, which was 15% out. It was the only one that was more than 10% out in terms of distance. So I thought, well, I'm going to have a look at this now. So I went and looked at the Great Circle route from London to Sydney, Australia. And then I went and looked at the airline companies for the flights to Australia. There are no non-stops because it's supposedly 10,500 miles, the shortest route. And that was a bit of an eye-opener to start with, because not one of them was flying on the Great Circle routes. So let me share a screen with you now. Let's say where's this one gone? Is that the one? No, that's Delhi. There we are. So when you look on a flat map, am I sharing the screen here?
No, you're not. Not yet.
Oh, right. Let me share the screen. There we go. Share the screen. Okay. So this is off Travel Math. So for those of you listening on the podcast, we've got this very, exaggerated curve. That's Delhi, actually. There we are. London to Sydney, Australia. So it's not a straight line as shown on a flat map. It goes up from the United Kingdom up further north into Europe and Russia, and then comes back down through Kazakhstan and China down into Australia. However, when you look at what routes the airlines are taking, so if you're looking at this map here, most of them are coming in a direct straight line up around Saudi Arabia to places like Abu Dhabi and Dubai to refuel, and then they're flying from there directly to Australia. You've got airlines like Qantas and these Arabian ones. I can't pronounce the names. They're all flying through there. There was one that went through India, which is about there. But again, there was none that was going on this great exaggerated circle route. apart from one, which was going via Hong Kong, which is somewhere around about there. So, you know, if you looked at 20 flights, you're only going to find one that's going anywhere near the Great Circle route. Virtually all of them are flying in straight lines, as it would be on a flat map. So let's take a look at Google Earth at what these actually look like.
Let me say real quick that he is on travelmath.com.
That one is, yeah. So anyway, I've got several flights on here. So I hope you know your geography. So here we go. So we've got London here, you know, London, south of England, and we'll move it round. And over here we've got Sydney, Australia. Okay, so there we go. The Great Circle route. You'll have to go off what the little hand is. Can you see the little hand as my pointer?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one there is the Great Circle route. There's London. That's the Great Circle route. That's what you'd be flying on the shortest route. Or if you can't do it as a non-stop, you would fly along that one and refuel wherever there's a suitable airport. Well, the most suitable one on that is Hong Kong, which is down there. And there was one flight that took that. So these are where the other flights went from. So you got London, that was going to Abu Dhabi. Most flights go to Abu Dhabi, to Australia. So they're flying south to Abu Dhabi and then non-stop over to Sydney. That one's Dubai, which isn't far from Abu Dhabi. So London, Dubai, Australia. And that one was going via, I think that was in Delhi in India, Australia. But as I say, if the shortest route was the Great Circle, then, you know, they would all be going via Hong Kong. So when you plot these routes where the majority are going on a flat map, it's not the Great Circle route. It's as near as damn it a straight line. So that was number one. So then I decided to look at another one. So this one here. I'm sorry, here we go. Seattle to Delhi. So when you look at the Great Circle route, this one's going up over the Arctic Circle and back down that way. So it will be flying west rather than east. But in reality, the flights don't go that way. They go west. So let's take a look at those. I think I've got them marked on. Just a minute. I've only just started doing this, so let's have a look. Let's find... I haven't put those on yet. I'll come back to those later. There's Seattle. So that is the Great Circle route. Okay, that is doable as a non-stop because it's 7,000 miles, which is well within the cruising distance of these long-haul jets. So what's happening is, I haven't marked it on yet, they're not going that way. They're going nowhere near the Arctic Circle. They're flying east across America, and they're stopping off on this side of Europe in places like London and Frankfurt, and then making the final leg over to here, which is in Delhi. So again, they're not doing Great Circle routes. And then we've got another one. I've marked this one on. This one is, sorry, not that one. This one. There we are. New York to Moscow. So here you can see there's New York, and the Great Circle route's taking you up to the tip of Greenland, across the middle of Iceland, and then arcing back down to Moscow. Now, there is one flight that's doing that, or it's doing it non-stop. I don't know whether it's taking that route. I would imagine it may well be just flying straight there. But the Topolov Airlines are down as doing that as a straight route, but everybody else is taking a different route. So let's have a look back on Google Earth for your JFK Airport to Moscow. Let's have a look. Here we go. So where's JFK Airport? There it is. Okay. There's JFK. That's the route flying on the Great Circle, you know, up along the tip of Greenland and across the bottom to the middle of Iceland. This is the actual route that most of them are taking. And they're flying from JFK and they're going to Charles de Gaulle Airport, which is in France. And then it's making the second leg from Charles de Gaulle over to Moscow. You know, the only flight that's non-stop is the Russian airlines, and I don't know whether they're doing a Great Circle route or not, but they're doing it non-stop. The others are obviously taking 2 legs. So based on the evidence I've seen so far, most flights that are long haul, they are not Great Circles. I imagine that these airlines have cottoned on to the fact that Great Circle routes are not the shortest route, but obviously they're probably not allowed to say it because you know, the Great Circle routes is all part of the globe cover-up. Now, don't take my word for any of this stuff. You can go to the travel companies and I can show you one. I've got one on here, okay? So this was the London to Sydney, Australia, and as you can see, this is Etihad Airways, and they're stopping off in Abu Dhabi. You know, we can go down to the next one, Abu Dhabi. Let's pick another one, Cathay Pacific. Where are they going? Flight details. They're going to via Hong Kong, which is close to the Great Circle route. Let's do another one. Emirates. Emirates are going via Dubai. Qantas Airways, they're, you know, and obviously big on the routes to Australia. They're going via Dubai on that particular flight. So you can see none are taking the Great Circle route. I'll just bring that back up again and you can compare the two. Here we go. So there's London. Okay, the Dubai one there's 2 that are close together. It's the one that's slightly higher north. That's where they're going. The Great Circle route is the second highest one up, which is about there. So, you know, there's a huge difference in those actual routes. And when you plot these on a flat map, they're more or less a straight line.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you plotted these on a flat map yet, to see how straight they are and how convoluted they are in comparison than on the globe. So, okay, well, Lawrence, I both say don't take either of our word for it. Go and do your own checking and verification. But after having seen this, Lawrence, how does that show you that the distance is triangulated? Now you show us the routes, but when you put those when you put those cities on the original Collignon to check and see if you said, well, this one's out 5% or that one's out 10%, you were basing that on what? The distances between the airports or the times of the flights?
No, the official distances, you know, on travel math and things like that, they're all coming out the same. So am I sharing here or not?
Just you, not the shared screen.
No sharing yet.
Let me share the screen once more.
Okay.
And I can show you what it looks like on the Collignon map. Just a second. Let me get back in. I can see where I am. Right, screen share. Here we go. Come on, pesky thing. Screen share, entire screen. Okay, so this is this is the actual flight from London to Sydney, Australia, on the Collignon map. So that's going via Abu Dhabi or Dubai, and they're very, very close to each other. Whereas the Great Circle route is doing this big loop and then coming down. Obviously, that is 10,500 miles, and the distance that I'd made, it was over 1,000 miles less. which was giving the 15% error. But when you look at it on the map now, where they're actually going, that would explain that discrepancy, because great circle routes, you know, show true distances if we really lived on a globe, but we don't live on a globe. So
right.
Great circle routes are going to be further than the true route on a flat map. But obviously they're trying to cover that up, you know, by publicizing that that's what they do. When in reality, when you look at the detail of the routes these flights take, they're not doing it. You know, they're taking the shortest route, which isn't Great Circle. So
okay,
check it out.
And so also we have to consider that in reality they are attempting to make a profit, a pretty good one. And so if it behooves them to stop in Abu Dhabi or Hong Kong or somewhere on these long haul flights to pick up more passengers, then they're obviously that's what they're going to do. But they're not going to go very far out of their way, and because then, you know, it doesn't make economic sense. So it's a waste of fuel and time and everything else. So I believe Dubai and Abu Dhabi have become quite the travel hubs in the last few decades. So I'm sure it behooves them to stop there. Did you do any of these? Did you check out any of these Great Circle routes versus straight path Rumline routes for any of the flights going across the southern hemi, say from South America to South Africa or South America to Australia?
I'm going that far yet, Laurie, but you know.
Okay. So this was a discovery from today when you found that, wow, they're not actually taking these Great Circle routes anyway.
Yeah.
So what's all the fuss about the Great Circle routes?
What's all the
I mean,
fuss
why do we keep hearing about that if that's not exactly the way that they're actually taking the flights?
Well, they have to say they're going to take the Great Circle routes because that is the shortest route if we really lived on the globe. They can't say they're not taking these other routes because they would be longer on the globe. Okay. So they're having to maintain the illusion that they're actually doing it when it comes down to you actually check what they are doing. They're not going on Great Circle routes.
All right. So what if we actually only are using, okay, because now we have this yin yang thing. Okay. We know that they're using UTM and type grid to plot courses, but then they're also showing us what it looks like on a globe. So if they're plotting it on, and you've said this yourself, Thomas, I've seen you say it numerous times, that you go to any airlines or airports, they're showing you these routes on a flat map, on actually a flat rectangular map, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not understanding this discrepancy. Is it because they don't know any better and they really think they're on a globe, and so they think they have to plot them on a Great Circle route, or because there's some great conspiracy by the airlines to fool everyone into thinking we live on a globe, because you don't have to fool that many people because most people already believe that?
I think the solution is as simple as they're using the Great Circle numbers, mathematics, to program the GPS and hope that the pilots don't notice. If the pilot happens to notice, you know, why are we flying this route when it's faster to go, you know, this other way, you know, then they just tell the pilot to be quiet, I would imagine. I'm not sure, but I'm imagining that's all programmed. Those routes are programmed into the GPS, so no one has to question it. It's, oh, well, that's just where the computer's taking us. It says that's the shortest route.
Isn't necessarily going to take Great Circle. GPS will take the shortest route, presumably. It's not going to put you on a Great Circle.
Well, it depends on how it's programmed. But let me just say this. All right. Okay. You know me. I question everything, even the conspiracy angle of it. Okay. So here I'm thinking, if I'm a pilot and I'm going to take a long distance route or route, whichever word you say, and I'm given the route that I'm supposed to fly, and it is already programmed into the computer, okay? But I'm also going to want to know where am I going, and if, let's say we have a computer glitch and the computer fails or gets hacked or, you know, just fails, they have to be able to fly that where they're going using other instrumentation, whether it's ground, you know, radio, what's the term, VOR? They have to be able to complete their flight using old tech, mid tech, low tech, whatever they have, you know, flying instruments. And so I don't think you can fool all of the people all of the time. Now, there are quite a few pilots that are becoming flat earthers for various reasons. So what I'm saying is, if the computer is telling them where they're going and they're going to sit back and just, you know, monitor this flight as pilots, being prepared to, you know, take over at any moment if they have to. I mean, there's going to be questions in your head. I know I would have them. Why am I flying this way if I could fly, you know, just, I've looked at maps before. I can just go right straight through here. Why aren't we doing that?
A lot of times.
Now, I know, just like anything else, you're going to, if you know, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the CEO of the airlines and say, you know, I have a suggestion. No, not normally.
Yeah, but the difference between a great circle route and a run route over a short distance, it's neither here nor there. It only becomes significant over a long haul route. Mm-hmm. So when it's broken down and the pilot starts saying, why are we going this way? The airline company will just say, well, it's for commercial reasons. We want to pick up some passengers here. They could tell them anything. But then the airline companies aren't going to be flat earthers, are they? They're going to think that they're living on the ball, you know, and they may think that the routes are programmed with, you know, with ball dimensions and stuff like that. But if they did, if GPS was programmed that we really were on a globe, then we would get lost, you know, because globe is different shape and everything else, isn't it? It's not going to get you where you want to go to. So GPS is programmed on the basis that we're on a flat earth. They're not going to show us all the, you know, the documents that prove that GPS is based on flat earth, but it has to be the same as when I showed those excerpts on flight dynamics, where the first pages, before we start, ladies and gentlemen, we have to assume that everything is based on a flat earth. They have to. And it's going to be the same for GPS, but we haven't got access to the documents to confirm that. But we know, if you know the earth is flat, then you know that GPS is based on a flat earth. Has to be.
Well, it's based on coordinates. I mean, it's latitude and longitude is what it's based on. And so those latitude and longitudes have to, on any map, have to be the same on any flat map as they are in the air on a globe. And what I mean in the air, like, you know, in the cloud, in all their programming. Okay, so I'm just making sure we think of everything. And I question you, me, myself, anybody's logic, just to be sure that, you know, we're not doing what we accuse other people of doing sometimes, and that is making the observation fit the hypothesis instead of making the hypothesis fit the observation. So, okay, well, we're going to obviously continue to work on this concept because.
Well, can I just tell you what put me onto that in the first place?
Okay, sure.
Thinking about it, I was on this forum for geeks in aviation and what have you, and this guy, he posted a comment in their forum saying, you know, I flew from A to B, I forget where it was, and from and to, and he said it was a run line, and all the others were saying, oh, it can't be. He said it was, you know, I knew exactly where the plane, it was a run line. And I thought, well, maybe it's not just an isolated case, maybe it's more widespread. And I would imagine that most flights are not going to be flown on great circle routes. They're going to be flown on run lines. It's the shortest way. Why wouldn't they?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's only
shortest.
logical, especially if it's commercial, and if it's not commercial, I can't see any reason why any pilot would want to chart a route to go way out of his way when he's paying for the gas, and time is money, and so on, wear and tear on the plane, and so on. Now, I mean, obviously, there's going to be times when you're going to go around weather. You know, if there's a hurricane out in the middle of the Pacific or the Atlantic, and you're going to want to go north of it or south of it or whatever. That's a different story. That's an isolated case.
Yeah, but you don't need a pilot. You don't need a pilot to confirm to you that these great circle routes are not being flown. The evidence is there for you to check yourself. All you do is type in, you know, flights from, you know, this place to this place. It'll bring them up, and you just click on for the route details. It'll tell you where the stop-off points are. Plot them on the map. Compare that to the great circle route, and obviously they're going to be different.
Right.
And when you put these on a flat map, you know, they are quicker and shorter in reality.
Well, I mean, it's very important information to add to the mix here, is knowing that there are quite a few more flights flying rumline paths than great circle paths. So, okay, let's jump over to include Thomas, and thanks for joining us again, Thomas Thompson, everybody. And Thomas joined us last night, and he had some kind of, I guess, a list of some of the reasons why he moved away from the AE map, the circle maps, and so on. And we did talk about Scott and Amundson's travels last night, and how it was impossible on the circle model for them to have made the journeys that they made and back in the time that they did it. So we also talked about we kind of got into the whole Pac-Man idea, and we were just talking before we started that the more you look into it, the more you come to the understanding that no flat Earth map or model works without some kind of either repeating pattern, Pac-Man, 4D, all these terms that have been thrown out there, that we have no defined terms yet to describe the anomalies and above natural, supernatural things that might be happening. So I want you, Thomas, if you'd like, to go over some of the things that you've studied with regard how you arrived at It's a Pac-Man, and you've also arrived at It's a Diamond, and maybe at a different circuitous route than what Lawrence and I did, but you ended up at the same destination.
Yeah, I came, well, the first thing I did was I had to figure out the exact continental layout. I had to determine, do my continents lay out like a standard, rectangle UTM, or do they circle a North Pole? So that was the first thing I had to do, was I had to determine, because there's only two possibilities, that's it. If you look up world maps, I don't care what kind of projection it is, there's really only two basic styles. I mean, you got a Pac-Man, and then you got this circle map, this AE. That's it. Every single map out there is a Pac-Man map, as you said. So anyways, the first thing I had to do is I had to determine my continental layout. And the way I did this, and here's an experiment. We can go right into this. An experiment that our listeners can do in just a few hours, one afternoon, very easy to do. go out and buy yourself the largest flat UTM paper map you can find, and cut out all 7 continents and lay them on your table. On each of these continents, you have 7 continents now. Mark 10 airports that surround the outer edges. So like on South America, you want 5 on the eastern edge and 5 on the western edge, stretching from top to bottom. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick 10 airports on each of these 7 continents, and you're going to cut yourself some string, and you're going to measure the distance between airports. So like say I'm flying from an airport that's in the lower tip of South America to the lower tip of Africa. I would determine what airports are at those 2 cities and the distance between them, and then I would cut my yarn, and then I would mark it. Now, how you determine your yarn length is you look on the map that you originally cut out your continents on. It will have a scale at the bottom. It will say something like 1 inch equals 1,000 miles. So let's say the distance between your 2 airports that you're trying to measure is 7,000 miles. That means you need a 7-inch piece of yarn to attach those 2 airports. Do not glue the yarn down to the paper. Trust me on this. Don't do it. You'll regret it later. Don't glue anything down. Just put the yarn down, cut it 7 inches, and then connect them to. And then go all the way. Here's the best way to start. Start with South America. Have your 5 airports that go all the way down your eastern edge. Then line them up with the 5 airports that are on the western edge of Africa. And line all these up so Africa and South America are perfectly lined up. Then attach North America to South America, then attach North America to Africa, then attach North America, then attach Europe. And through a process of elimination, attach all 7 of your continents together through these 10 airports on each continent. And that'll tell you, is it possible to have a UTM map? Well, it is not. I guarantee when you do this, and here's a trick when you do this, you're going to run into problems. Cut Russia in half. Trust me on this. You'll see why when you do the experiment yourself. But cut Russia in half and put America in the middle. But yeah, every single map, no matter what you look at, no matter how you look at it, they're all the UTM styles. When I went to the airports and I started checking the distances, I realized once that the style, the continental layout that you see on a standard UTM was a working model. And that the pilots were flying by these, people were driving by these, postal people were traveling across the oceans in these. The people who lay the underwater sea cable, the submarine cables across the oceans from continent to continent, they're using a UTM grid map. And you got to remember, let's think about that for a second. Let's say you're in charge of the company that creates these giant submarine cables that stretch all the way from, let's say, one stretches from America all the way over to Europe. Trust me when I tell you, if you have to pay for this out of your own pocket, you know exactly how long that cable is, because you have to buy the supplies, pay people to make the cable and put it together. You know the exact inch of that cable. And so there is absolutely no question that a true map of our flat Earth is well known, and it's being used every single day. And everywhere I went, I kept seeing the same rectangle UTM everywhere. When I turn on the news, 6 o'clock news, I see a giant UTM map in the background. When I check the FedEx to track my packages, I see a giant, a UTM map in the background. Every airport, I don't care what airport it is, all of them, there's not one that doesn't use it. They all use this UTM. So that tells me if these pilots are flying every single day, they're flying by the thousands by this map, and they're getting to where they're going, well, obviously that map's correct. So now that's when it just led me, I said, well, okay, well, at this point now I got to ask, well, if this map is correct, well, then how's the sun work? Because obviously the sun can't be circling like it does on the Gleason. And that's when I came to the idea. I says, okay, well, let's take up what are our known measurements. Our known measurements are that the equator is 24,901 miles. And we know Capricorn and Cancer are both equal length, approximately, that it does fluctuates, 18,380 miles. So this tells me that Capricorn and Cancer are both the same length and shorter than the equator. So if my equator represents the dead center of my flat Earth, and Capricorn and Cancer are both shorter, and the overhang is 6,521 miles. So basically you have 3,260 miles overlap on each side, stretches longer. So this tells me that there's an angle going from the equator up to the pole that's steadily tapering off. Now, whether you want to put that inside of a diamond or an Iotov projection or sinusoidal projection really doesn't matter. The continental layout is what really matters, and where these continents are in relationship to each other. And that's gonna tell you right there what the layout is. Other maps might work. Like for instance, I was reading a post from a certain pilot where he said he prefers the Lambert map. Well, even if you look at the Lambert map, it's still a Pac-Man map. No matter how you shift it around, it's always going to be a Pac. There's no getting around that. I hate to use that word because it sounds so childish, you know, and uninformed, uneducated. But right now, what name do we really have? You know, the Enochian portal gate system. But my point is, no matter how you looked at it, there was no choice. I had to accept Pac-Man. I had to accept that there was an angle at the equator going up to the poles. Therefore, I'm either an Iotov or I'm in a diamond. So at that point, I started studying the Freemasons and a lot of their artwork that you can see in their old Masonic prints, and started studying other various things. And I started coming up with this pyramid design with a square base. And I eventually came to the conclusion that we were, you know, it's a square base, but it's in a diamond position. And that we have two poles on each side of this pyramid, Jacob and Boaz. One's the North Pole, one's the South Pole, and this pyramid exists in between them, according to these Masonic paintings. And that outside the pyramid, we see sun, moon, and stars all being reflected into the pyramid, which we are in. And to take that one step further, when I say we live in a pyramid, if you look at a lot of the old ideas of what flat Earth looks like, you'll see the Gleason people. They always show every culture had these little round, they were like little round disc, like say the Navajo Indians, it would be a round disc, and then there would be some kind of little temple thing in the dead center, or Mount Meru or something like that. Well, the Incans and the Mayans and all them, they actually have a pyramid in the dead center. And that's the whole concept, you know, that we're actually inside that pyramid, that we actually haven't seen the Earth yet. We're stuck inside this pyramid. But anyways, once I realized the layout of the continent, I had absolutely no choice but to accept Pac-Man, because the fact is, I know for an absolute fact, the sun travels Cancer in the summer. It travels in spring and fall on the equator, and in wintertime it travels Capricorn. There's no getting around this. Everyone in the world, baller or flat earther, all agree to this. Now it's just a matter of where are those three lines on our flat earth. Well, if we're going by the UTM map that pilots are proving exist, that military personnel are proving exist, that postal, everyone's proven it exists, well, then that means these lines are perfectly straight. I mean, well, Cancer and Capricorn actually arc. We can see that in the celestial sky. There is a slight arc, but the equator goes perfectly straight. Well, if the equator in spring and fall is going perfectly straight, well, then I have to acknowledge a Pac-Man type, you know, systems going on here, because it does appear to be leaving out the west side and coming back in. The same way, if I get in a boat and go over the international date line on the western edge of the map, I'm going to come back on the eastern edge of the map, per the map. But in reality, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm just continuing on. So that's where I stand at the moment.
Well, I think that's pretty much the way that Lawrence and I arrived at the same thing. And actually, it was Lawrence who, it dawned on him, well, if the Earth is 24,901 miles at the equator. Let's just draw the equator. And if it's 12,450 miles, thereabouts, between the poles, let's draw that. And that turns into an elongated diamond, not a square diamond. And like a baseball diamond is a square diamond. And the collignon, the sinusoidal, and a few of the others that are stretched out to show the entire equator. And that means the entire equator from the international date line back to the international date line on the other side. And that's what spreads it out. But you don't have to put the prime meridian in the middle. You can do the whole thing and keep shifting it. One of those continents is they just do it that way because that's the natural boundaries that we're used to. And so that puts the prime meridian in the center as the prime axis. You said a few minutes ago that Capricorn and Cancer are curved. I'm going to kind of tweak that a little bit and see if you agree with my assessment. The lines are straight. It's the sky bodies that curve.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. I thought about that after I said what I said. Then I realized, well, wait a minute, the sun's reflecting inside. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So we've, from Lawrence's diamond, I was the one who said, let's put a pyramid over the top of it. And if you line the pyramid axes up with the prime meridian and the international date line, prime meridian in the center, the international date line on both side points, and then obviously the north and the south would be the other two corners of the pyramid. Okay. So it's still elongated, twice as wide as it is tall. Then as the sun above this pyramid firmament, as it goes across the equator, it's going to go in a straight line because it's going right over the apex of the roof.
Right.
Okay. And so that's why everyone everywhere sees it come in due east and leave due west, or the whole like degree thing. So as it goes up to Cancer, it's now on the angle coming in, and not only on the angled walls this way, but they're sloping down toward the North Pole and down toward the South Pole. Okay. You got me?
Right.
They're converging.
Well, you know what?
All right.
Going along with that same idea, remember, what if we model it like the Egyptian pyramid that doesn't actually have 4 sides, it actually has 8 sides, that the sides are actually bending inward a little bit. And if our roof is any way like the Great Pyramid, that alone, as the sun comes across that outside of it and shines on that inward arc could be causing, you see what I'm saying? If
I absolutely see what you're saying. I'm saying now you're getting somewhat of a double refraction prism effect.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that is going to want to make, it's like putting a straw in a glass of water. Okay. The glass of water is half full, and you put the straw in there and you look through, and it looks like the straw came in over here and then went through the water over there. Right. It breaks the straw. It's not in a straight line anymore. And so that kind of refraction, it is bending the light. And that's why people in the northern hemisphere in Cancer, when the sun's in Cancer, see the light go north and of east, come in north of east and go out north of west. Okay. And that is part of why the AE has stuck so well is because that's the arc that they see. And 90% of the population lives north of the equator. All right.
Right.
Now you go south of the equator and you have the sun in Capricorn. It's going to do the opposite effect. It's going to come in south of east and set south of west. All right. Because the same effect is happening in the south as it is in the north.
Right.
Are you still following me?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
And so, okay, so now they see the reverse arc from their position. Now that also answers to why the sun appears to look like it's circling the North Pole and why it appears to look like it's circling the South Pole from the viewer there during their summer. North summer, South summer, opposite.
You know, why
and
you
so
bring that
people
up,
say, no, they just, nobody has, we can't trust any of the footage that's coming from Antarctica because, you know, it's all collusion down there, and, you know, it's not happening because it can't happen that way because there's a big ice wall around the outside, and nobody in any one position on that gigantic ice wall could see the sun go south of them. Okay. But
right.
it's perfectly okay on the circle model for the sun to go around in a circle for them. Now, so you can't deny that the same thing's happening in the South. There's enough people now. I mean, it's not like we're living in the 1500s. There's enough people that have been to Antarctica. There's stations there. There's filming being done. There's visitors. There's tourists, on and on and on. You can't fake that. All right. Now, just because there's not as much footage as that one premier piece of footage that everyone sees about the sun going around the North Pole, north of north.
Hold on, I'd like to address that for a second real quick. Because all these Gleason guys, the first thing they throw at you when you're arguing with them about this model is they say, well, what about this 24-hour sun at the North Pole? Now, first of all, what I'd like to bring to everybody's attention that everyone seems to be forgetting about is when you look at that footage, that sun is not circling. If it were circling, it would be at the same level. You are literally watching the sun arc back and forth like this. You're literally seeing. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing an arc back and forth. You're not seeing a circle like this. That's not what you're seeing.
Thomas, you're seeing Pac-Man in action.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's going out the west side and coming back on the east side. And that's what is making the visual of the circle. And
that's why
I've rested my case on that. And the same thing is happening in the South, because you can go to Casey. Is it McMurdo or Casey, Lawrence? I think it's McMurdo. No, it's Casey, where there's time-lapse footage of the sun going what appears to go around in a circle, and the camera is pointing south. And you can see not only the sun doing that, but you can see the shadows when the sun's behind the camera, okay, which is north of the camera. And then the camera is pointing south and you see the sun come around. All right. And you know what else? That's also when you happen to see that crazy black dot that's always on the sun when it's low in the sky there in Antarctica. So you know, to say it doesn't happen and to completely ignore it and throw it out of hand would be, to me, the same as trying to put somebody on trial for murder and you have the gun, but you can't admit it into evidence because there's something tainted about the evidence, how they got the gun. Okay. So now you got to try this person with no weapon, and because you can't talk about the gun. So I keep feeling like that's that's what we're doing. Is we have this evidence, but we can't use it because no one wants to believe it.
No one wants to admit what it means, because they know as soon as they say the Gleason is wrong and you say, well, what else you got? Immediately, what else? What are the pilots using? They're going to say the UTM. Then they're going to say, uh-oh, that means Pac-Man. Nope, I don't want to hear it. I'll stick with this Gleason. It works just fine. We got a circling sun.
Well, the problem is, and this is a good segue, and, you know, this is a good place for Lawrence to join back in, and that is, Lawrence and I have been saying for years now, literally years, what the hell is going to happen when this crazy model hits the mainstream media, and because now it is so completely ingrained in the flat earth dogma and the flat earth, you know, movement, as even though everyone will say now, you know, well, we know it's not perfect, but it's the best we've got. Okay. We've all heard that one.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
And right. And, you know, I'm the one that said, if I get invited to a black tie dinner and I don't have a little black dress, I can't go because I don't have the right attire. All right. And so to me, coming out into mainstream media with t-shirt and jeans on when I'm supposed to be presenting the best that I have, I would rather not go, not have media, than present something that's erroneous that anybody can tear apart. Especially, you don't even need Neil deGrasse Tyson's and Brian Cox's and, you know, Bill Creep, the science guy. You don't need them. Anybody can tear this thing to shreds, because you just only have to ask a few questions. So Lawrence and I said, you know, a long time ago, oh my God, this is going to be so embarrassing when they start showing this map and model, this circling sun and the ice wall and the little dome over the top, because that's not reality. And it can't even come close to reality. Well, guess what? Slowly over time, flat earthers have gotten excited. Oh, we made mainstream media. And you go, ooh, I know. And I saw that map and model, and ooh, that's awful. And then they say, oh, the Flat Earth Conference, you know, we got all over the media, and the BBC and the blah, blah, and the NBC local station. And what did they show? They walked down the corridor of the conference with all the little Gleason maps and all the little, you know, dome covered models all lined up on the tables for sale, whatever. And then that's what they blasted all over the place. And I'm sorry, but I cannot ignore the fact that we have our flat earth guru, Mark Sargent, saying, and I could have just gotten out of a mental institution on top of that. So I want you guys to talk about what does it mean to you for flat earth to go mainstream at any given point in time with that map and that model, and what is the outcome going to be?
Well, I'll say this.
What, Lawrence?
Well, outside of YouTube, the mainstream, it's just hitting them now. You know, the BBC and CBS and national radio are covering flat Earth now, but they haven't actually reached the stage of looking at the model. You know, they just see it, and you know, at first glance, like we saw it ourselves, it might look reasonable for a flat Earth depiction, but when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, it doesn't work, and that's probably going to be the next stage, because flat Earth isn't going away. There's more and more people coming into it now. It's you know, it's getting big, and then you've got another conference in the UK next year, where again they'll be promoting the circle model. There'll be somebody selling, you know, football stadium type models of the flat Earth, and all the false maps. They'll be on all the tables being sold, and this is what's going to get reported in the British media. And at some point, there will be some debate on, national TV, and the representative, it won't be a genuine flat earther. It'll be somebody, one of the big names who've been there for quite some time. And they'll wipe the floor with him. And that will probably be the end of flat earth as far as the public are concerned, because it doesn't work. It doesn't mirror reality. They get fudged anyway when these people are doing these street interviews, and they're saying, well, they start talking about the flights where they've gone west from America and gone to Tokyo or somewhere like that, and they said, you can't do it on your flat map. It doesn't happen. And they can't mention Pac-Man, so they just say that flying from east to west, it's going round in a circle. And of course, that was one of the early memes where they show a plane going all the way around the earth, and they've got it drawing it going round in a circle. And I actually was sending those memes out myself, because I didn't think I'd been set up with a false model from the get-go, but we all were. More and more people are realizing that that it is a false model now, but there's so many people that are, they have their gurus and they can do no wrong. But even when they do wrong, they make excuses for them. And it's very hard that, they're effectively cults. I mean, all you've got to do is go and have a look at let's go and have a look at the chat later on Jaren's channel to see what these people are actually saying. And that will show you the mentality of so-called flat earthers. And, they're not making intelligent comments. They're just, slagging you off and saying, she's got a voice like nails on a blackboard or something. She talks in a condescending voice. They don't deal with the information. They attack the person because they can't attack the information because what you're presenting is correct. So yeah, when it hits the mainstream media and they start looking at it in detail, that's when it's got a big problem. So I would rather that we went with no model. We've got enough provable evidence that the Earth is flat. Now we've got this extra evidence showing that great circle routes aren't flown. So they would have some explaining to do about that. We've got loads of evidence that prove the Earth is flat. You don't need the model of the heavens and the plane that we stand upon. There's enough evidence besides that. So that's what they should be doing, but they're not. And, these people, where they're recruited from, I've no idea. But,
well, the reason why, Lawrence, is because of the questions that were thrown out there very early on by those who were skeptics about what flat earthers were saying. And they were the classic questions. And I believe the classic question of what holds the oceans in on this circle disc, the first clever person, Robotham or whoever, I don't care if it was Eric Dubé or Robotham or, whoever came before that, who came back with a quip, well, it's surrounded by ice and the ice holds the water in. It's a pond, okay? That was an answer that sounded logical, and everyone knows that, if you put a frozen ice wall around the outside of a pond, it's the same as this outside of the pool. So that caught on as a quippy little comeback to get people to move on to the next thing. Now, if you take that away, if you take that question away, what holds the oceans in, because it's always asked, are people prepared to hear, well, you don't actually have to hold the oceans in because it just keeps going back to where it came from. Oh, well, you mean just like a globe? So there's a whole lot more explanation that has to happen with trying to describe what we're talking about. Most people either don't have the time to go into it, don't have the knowledge about it, or the language, to use. And then it just snowballs from there. All these questions, it's one thing for someone to say, I mean, I just had a question tonight before I came on the Hangout. How come I can't see the sun with my telescope at night? That's a logical question for a glober who thinks the sun's gone around the curvature of the earth. You can't see it with a telescope because the telescope can't bend around the earth. And my answer was light doesn't travel infinitely. They just tell you that it does. But does the lamp in your bedroom light your living room? No, it doesn't. Not because it's behind a wall, because I mean, it could be like right down the hallway and then you're out in the living room. A little bit of light's going to spill out from the lamp to the living room. It's based on the power of the light, right? And so the questions required people to come up with quick little responses just to move on to the next point. And then someone else gave an answer and they go, ooh, I like that answer. That's a good, that shuts them down. So I'm going to use that answer. And by the method of repetition, it's stuck. And that is what is called dogma. It is, you didn't come up with it. You didn't prove it. You didn't observe it. And so, but you're repeating it as if you did. So having no map, no model whatsoever would stop the whole map war thing in flat Earth if everyone would just agree to that. The only reason why we're pursuing another map or another model is because we can, because we're interested, because we're curious and we're looking, but we're not forcing it on anyone. We're not saying you either have to believe what we're telling you or the Gleason AE thing. We've never said that. We have said, based on our accumulated information, it's Pac-Man, and every flat map has to have it if the sun doesn't go in a circle, and it doesn't. So that's a logical conclusion. Jaron put up a video about inductive versus inventive reasoning, and like we're being inventive and throwing out something that's workable if we could just figure out how to explain it. Well, I'm not interested in coming up with layers of ad hoc reverse engineered theories to explain things that don't work on a map and model that doesn't work just so I can keep it. That's like to have an old ratty pair of jeans and keep sewing the pockets back on, and you keep sewing patches on the knees and so on.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Dubai had his book, 200 Reasons We're Not on a Globe, or it was called something like that. We could probably put together a book saying 200 reasons why the AE map simply doesn't work. There are just so many of them. And the people that push the false map, they just cherry pick a few where they can come up with some, ridiculous reverse engineered theory as to how it could possibly work if this happened and this happened and this happened. But they ignore the rest.
Okay, so I want to hear what Thomas thinks about this mainstream media thing. Is it cringeworthy as much to you as it is to me when you watch mainstream media reports and they show this map and model? Or let me even add further, when there's some kind of mainstream debate where somebody calls into a radio station that's well listened to and millions of people hear it, or TV or whatever.
Yeah, it just sickens me every time I hear, or I'll see something like on CBS News. Just the other day, they had it wasn't a big day, just a little segment on a flat Earth, and the first thing I see pop up is this Gleason model. Now, here's the thing: I absolutely 100% agree with Lawrence. We have enough evidence just to establish that the Earth is flat. We don't have to provide a model. However, here's the problem with that. When you're going up to a glober for the very first time and you're trying to explain flat Earth to them, what are you going to tell them? Because as soon as you say, well, it's this, UTM style diamond or whatever. The first thing comes out of his mouth is, how's the sun work? How does the water stay in the map? You're not going to have no choice. If you want to convert this guy over to reality and bring him out of the illusion of a ball Earth, you're going to have to explain this, because he's going to ask. There's not one time that I've ever engaged, and I talk to people on the streets all the time, and I discuss this with them, and that always is on them. Now, here's the thing. You're saying, well, this is the best thing I got is this AE map. Well, you know what? The best you have is not good enough. Not when I have this many errors in it. And if you go to the public and they debunk it, if they debunk it, they're never going to take Flat Earth serious. As long as they can debunk you, every time you go into public and they debunk you, that's another mark against Flat Earth. Then the next guy does the exact same thing. And next thing you know, no one is taking us serious. Like, here's a thing. I go up to a guy and I'll tell him, okay, we're living on a Gleason map. You know, we got this giant icy shore, 65,000 miles around, right? He says, okay, now, if you guys are looking at your Gleason map, I want you guys to look at it for a second. And imagine there's a guy standing at the lower tip of South Africa. There's another guy standing at the lower tip of South America. And there's another guy standing in Australia. And I asked all three of these guys, okay, you guys, which way is Sigma Octanus? Which way do you got to look to see it? They're all three going to say south. Okay, well, where is Sigma Octanus on your ring? Because they're all three looking in three completely different directions, and they're all seeing Sigma Octanus. So you can't just go ahead and say, oh, well, there are no southern stars. Because that's what happens when you get rid of the South Pole and you say there's no South Pole. You have to get rid of all the stars that are associated with that South Pole, too. You have to get rid of the Aurora Borealis that's down there. You have to get rid of a lot of stuff. It just doesn't work out. So that's my point, is when you go to the public with something that is so simple to debunk, they're never going to take you serious. Every time you do this, that's putting another nail in the Flat Earth coffin. And unless you go with the truth right off the beginning, and the truth is, Pac-Man, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's just the reality.
Yeah, there's a British sportsman, you might not be aware of him in America, but his name's Freddie Flintoff, and he was the English cricket captain. So he's known by everybody in the UK, and we've got whatever 60 million people over here. And he has a weekly podcast on BBC Radio, and he probably gets millions of listeners. And if you listen to his most recent podcast, it certainly sounds like he's convinced the Earth is flat. So, but he's already talking about freaking ice walls because he hasn't looked into the detail of it. So it is definitely getting more popular, and more people are going to look into it. And the problem is when they do,
yeah, they're going to see the problem.
Well, and when they do, Lawrence, okay, this is happening also, okay? There are people who will say, well, at least it's an introduction into Flat Earth. And then once they start to do their own research, they will find out, that there's problems with this map and model, and that
you can't start with a lie.
Okay. And then they'll hear about people like Thomas, you, me, Darren Nesbitt, Dave Marsh, Paul Kofo. Like, the list goes on and on of people who have gotten past the AE, found it to be full of holes, full of errors, and they're completely okay with having no map or model. All right. Now, some of them have moved into Pac-Man. It must be that. Okay. Some of them have not. They're not willing to invest in another idea, another ideal. They're just going to stop at, I'm okay with not knowing exactly the map or model. We'll figure it out later. We just need to get to critical mass of enough people having heard about Flat Earth. In my opinion, there are very few people in westernized countries that have not heard at least once about flat Earth. Everybody has heard about it. All right. Now, whether they've researched it one iota, whether they've immediately put it out of hand, not interested, sounds crazy, not even going to look into it. Part of the problem that happened early on were the flat earthers who needed to spread the word to everyone. They went on the NASA channels and they went on the, the threads of every Bill Nye the Science Guy or any astronaut who has a page or any of that. And they just hammered away and went after every glober that made fun of them, called them globers, called them globetards, called them stupid, went about it, in my opinion, all the wrong way. They got tagged with being condescending, arrogant, smartass, trolls, the whole 9 yards, because of their, not everyone, not labeling everyone, but a whole lot of them thought they were onto something, and they were so excited about it and they wanted everyone to know. And so they got Flat Earth a reputation for, being assholes and acting like they know stuff that everybody else doesn't know. And people pushed back. They said, flat tards and everything else. And it became this war when that didn't need to happen, but it did. And so now I think we're trying to heal from that. There are those who still do that. They'll just, if someone questions them, they'll just shut them down like that and call them stupid, and off they'll go. I'm not even going to talk to you about it. You're too stupid to even talk to. And that's wrong. Now, if those people are trolling you and being all, buttheads, well, then okay, that's what they're doing, and there's no reason to engage with them. But if somebody's asking you legitimate questions, even if you've been asked that question 1,000 times, answer it anyway, the best that you can, or say, might I suggest you go look at this or go investigate that, and put the research back in their court. If they, links, how many times have I seen this when you say something and they'll go, links? Like you're supposed to spoon feed them everything you've been through for the last 3 years in a quick, concise 5-minute video. Can't happen. Impossible. So that's why I have never hoped that Flat Earth goes into the mainstream news, because the mainstream news is going to make fun of Flat Earth no matter what. No matter what. No matter what.
They're using it as a straw man. Yeah, they're using it as a straw man, so they can get a couple quick laughs. And that's another point that I keep trying to explain to people is, okay, who's in charge of the whole ball Earth? Who gave us the ball Earth in the first place? If you trace it out, if you did your research, you find out it's the Masons. The Masons gave us the ball. Okay, so who's going to know the secret? The Masons. Now, whose flag is that? On the United Nations. That's not our flag. That's not, people like to say, well, that's a flat Earth flag. No, that's a secret society flag. That's their flag. You see,
that's the New World Order's flag.
Yeah, that you see it in all the Hollywood movies. You always see this round map. So here's the thing: the government did this little rollout. They wanted to introduce the flat Earth to us. However, they figured, well, this science is starting to get a little bit complicated. We're going to expose various sciences that Tesla was going to expose, and we don't want these sciences known by the general public. Like electrical field theory in particular. So yeah, they come up with this whole concept of a ball. But I'm telling you, it's these Masons that gave us the ball. These Masons also gave you that Gleason map. I'm telling you that Gleason map is not a true map. Literally, it's like Lawrence says, we could make up 200 proofs the Earth is not a Gleason map easily. On a daily basis, make a post up about, this fact and that fact that just You can't have a model with that many flaws. And if you go to public with this, and with this model and all these flaws, you're not doing it. You're hurting us.
Well, not everybody is smart enough to, when you first show it to them,
right,
or has the time or the interest to immediately start debunking it. Okay. They're
right.
just going to go, the Earth's not flat. If instead of trying to describe this map and trying to fill in the blanks of what it is instead of what it isn't, if there's one thing I learned a very long time ago. If you're talking to someone and you're trying to describe something, sell them something, influence them in some way, impart information, and they keep trying to get you off course of what your goal or your agenda or however you want to call it is, when that starts to happen, if you stop and ask yourself or remind yourself in your head, you have to say it out loud, but you can. I think the real question here is, and go back to your talking points, go back to your strong points. And that way, when they say, well, how come the water doesn't fall off the edge? Then that's when you say, I think the real question here is, did you know gravity has never been proven? Or did you know that the Michelson-Morley experiment or Airy's failure, and go back to the things that are already good evidence that have been done by intelligent people before you. And you don't have to spin any yarns. You don't have to make up anything. And if when you're talking to people, you did that. And the other thing is, I think self-effacing humor is just all fun and that's all fine. People like to, make fun of themselves so that the other people won't make fun of them first. And if someone makes fun of you, sometimes it's fun to yuck it up and go, yeah, that's right. I'm a real moron. Okay. But you don't have to offer that you are stupid or that you are, give them ammunition to make you look stupid. Like, I'm sorry, but have to go back to Mark Sargent saying, and I might have just gotten out of a mental institution. Okay. Once that is out of your mouth and on film, it's archived for eternity. You cannot ever take it back. And one thing you have to learn is never give them anything that you don't want them to use. And if they take it out of context, and I will show you the perfect example, okay? Months and months ago, I don't even know how long, Lawrence and I were talking about Masonic stuff. And I actually think Thomas might have been on this particular show. And I was going through Masonic hand signs. And I literally did this. Okay. Now somebody make sure and get a good screen capture of me explaining what a Masonic hand sign looks like so that you can cut this out and you can plaster it all over the internet that Lori Frary was throwing Masonic signs. Okay. Because that happened. Now I just did it again and I'll do it 1,000 more times because I am not a Mason. And I'm not doing the thing with the eye and the 666. I'm explaining what it looks like, right? But sure enough, someone captured that frame right out of a video and started blasting it all over the place and calling me a Mason. And one of them and an agent, and Sheila, let us know. She's just hiding it right in plain sight. So that's the point that you have to understand about today's internet. If you don't want it everywhere, don't put it out there. And so, could have just gotten out of an insane asylum is an inside joke. And you do not do inside jokes. It's bad taste to people who are outside the inside joke.
I agree. And again, if you're going to go public, again, just concentrate on them little simple things that you know prove the Earth is flat, or prove, you know, that the horizon is always at eye level no matter how high up you go. Prove that the horizon is not the curve of the Earth, that you can get a camera and zoom past it, or a telescope and zoom past it. There's all kinds of proofs that will establish that the Earth is flat. You don't have to get the model.
And isn't simpler better? Isn't it better to, instead of going and just regurgitating a whole bunch of crap all over them, okay, isn't it better to give them a little bit of curiosity and just throw out one or two little things that are so obvious that if they go and look, now they'll have to go and look, or they'll have to have that kind of stewing in their head for a little while, and then they'll be on a tall building and they'll see this horizon, or they'll see the ship and see a film of somebody bringing it back, and lots of other things, high altitude footage of the horizon, yada, yada. All it takes is a few little things that actually is like a worm, and it gets inside them and it starts eating at them. And then they will start to research. And then they'll either get it or they won't. But sooner or later, they're going to get it. But cramming it down their throat in some kind of, you know, perfect little model, you know, snow globe and the thing and the ice, and, you know, you don't have to do all that. As a matter of fact, it's wrong to do all that, because you don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Thomas doesn't know. Me, Lawrence, and Thomas are sitting right here willing to admit what we do know and what we don't know. Okay. And the direction that our, you know, research is leading us, and the direction it's leading us away from. And that is all we're doing. We're not forcing any further information on anyone. And we do this for fun, and for the reason that we got involved in doing this in the first place. And that's to tell other people and get people to wake the hell up. Why? Because does it really matter where we live if we're still going to be slaves? Is it still going to matter if we're still in indentured servitude to fiat currency and giant governments, new world orders, and people making laws by the second that you got to live with, and pretty soon rolling out stuff like AI and 5G and connecting us all up to where we're so stuck in this matrix we'll never get out of it. That's why I'm doing it. Now, I don't know why anybody else is, but that's why I'm doing it. It's like, wake the hell up.
And that's the thing, people got to realize, the people that are behind this whole deception, why would they make a globe Earth deception in the first place? What my point is that once you discover the flat Earth, this immediately opens you up to the reality that this is bigger than just the Earth being flat. This is about something literally evil over your head that governs everything. That, you know, is putting out the flat Earth, or hiding the flat Earth, hiding intelligent design, giving us, you know, alien gods, you know, with spinning planets and all this nonsense. This is all being directed by some sort of energy or force. I don't want to say Illuminati, because I don't even know that there is such thing.
Doesn't matter. What it comes down to, Thomas, and you'll agree, is it's mind control.
Absolutely,
if they can control
100%.
what you believe, what you think about life, the universe, and everything, the more of it that they can control what you believe and what you think. And on top of that, get as many people to believe as many different things as possible, so that they all fight with each other and they don't have time to look at us, wonder what we're doing behind the curtain, right? So you add those two things together, and that is mind control. I refuse to have my mind controlled. I already lived that and was none the wiser until I woke up. And man, when that happened, it happened like a ton of bricks. And I started looking at everything. And from that point on, I cannot stop questioning everything. I question myself. I question, why did I think that? And why do I still believe that? And lots of other people are doing the same thing. And something happens in your life, each individual person, that drops a ton of bricks on your head, whether you get involved with the law or whether you get in, debt, or whether you foreclosed or divorce and get in the court with the kids and the family, and just always get a ticket that you can't get out of, and all kinds of stuff. Just always a trigger. And then you learn about one part of the system that's all screwed up and is in total control of your life. And then it snowballs. So that's where flat Earth comes in. Now, you said that you believe it was a rollout. Absolutely. I concur. So does Lawrence. We all three agree. And Lawrence even has had thoughts early on why it was rolled out. And we're still not really sure what the end game of this was, whether it was to, humiliate and crush flat Earth forever and ever when they're ready to do that, roll it out, crush it, and then we're done with that. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Or roll it out on purpose because we will have this other agenda that goes with that. There's a whole bunch of what ifs that it could be, but for as many people to have picked up on this map and model and dogma and agenda and everything else so easily, so quickly, that's really not organic. That's not how organic happens. I've never seen any movement that wasn't in massive movement that wasn't in some way orchestrated.
Yeah. Well, let me say something, Laurie, because the way I see it going now is that it's becoming exponential in the number of people that find out because they're allowing it to. And that's what really the problem's going to be, because you're going to have at some point in the future school kids challenging the teachers. Probably happening already.
Already,
when
yes.
They're trying to educate them about the heliocentric world. So they're going to have to compromise and admit that we're on a flat Earth at some point. And their strategy is going to be that it's a different flat Earth to what it is. And it's everything as usual, the same old shit life. And it's a flat Earth. It's not going to be the beautiful realm that it is or could be. It's going to be a different one. And, we're being held prisoners by whatever. And we're going to have to protect you from these beings or these bad people. That's what I think they're going to do. And that was the whole point of all these agents who came in the first place. It was to promote flat Earth, to get it off the ground, because they knew it was going to happen anyway, but to make sure that the model was a laughable thing when it actually reaches the masses. And that's what's happening now, because there are so many of these agent channels who know full well that they're telling lies about how it is. They know full well that their viewers probably don't. Some of them are stupid. Some of them are mind controlled, or they're cultish in their behavior. They're not very bright. They've not had much in their life. They've found this amazing new discovery, and they're not for changing the model. And that's the problem that we have, because I'm sure they're probably going to roll the flat out to the world before too long, but it ain't going to be the true model. And that is why they're trying to reverse engineer everything they possibly can to make this false model work. But these people who are doing that, they'll be nowhere to be seen when the shit hits the fan. and it all comes, apart of the seams.
Well, that was what I was just saying, Lawrence, is, when it's rolled out, okay, they've had plenty of time to reverse engineer what they need to tell people to accept as the flat earth model. They've had they haven't had as many years to reverse or engineer things like gravity and spin and 23.4 degree axis and vortexing and all that stuff. But this is going to be a lot easier because there's only so many things they really need to explain. And as long as it sounds plausible, and we can already see that some of the gurus out there have come up with some explanations, and people go, oh my gosh, that resonates with me so much. And that's exactly how it is. So they've had plenty of time to come up with some pretty plausible explanations, and it certainly isn't going to be Pac-Man.
Yeah, and they're not going to be reacting to all of this stuff. They've already got it pre-planned. They've already got an alternative flat earth model ready to roll out and present to the masses, because this is a big budget operation. They've got probably thousands of people involved, people behind the scenes, people who will actually print a book just to debunk you and me, or try to,
well, no, Lawrence, think about it this way. Lawrence, I'd like you to come into the office. Let's say you work for NASA, okay? Lawrence, I'd like you and Thomas to come into the office. You've been selected for a special operation, and here, first thing you have to do is you have to sign this non-disclosure agreement, and we're going to pay you, triple your salary, because this is on the QT. This is hush hush, because we can't let this out. Because what do they always say in the scary movies? The apocalyptic movies. Oh, we can't tell the people. The masses will, they'll all go crazy, and we just need to keep this quiet from them, because they'll just turn into zombie apocalypse out there. All right. So they'll bring these few people in, probably already have, and disclose to them that the earth is flat, and that this has been a deception that has been going on for a long, long time. And we need to, be honest, finally be honest with the people. And it's really going to be a global shocker. So we need to be very careful about how we roll this out. And in the meantime, we're going to let it slip out into the mainstream and let people start thinking about it, and let it, some momentum start growing. And we'll do that. The best way to control opposition is to be the one in control, whatever that saying is. If you want to control the message, control it yourself. So that's been my opinion for quite some time, is that, $19 billion a year for NASA, for example.
That's what I was just going to say.
You can take $5 billion of that and start working on a flat earth rollout, or concave, or whatever it is they come up with. Okay, whatever. We live inside the ball and not on the outside of the ball, or whatever they come up with. And explanations already.
Here's the thing, though, Lori, is I don't understand is that, look, all our black ops money, for instance, let's say our government wants to pay Israel so they can start a terrorist organization named ISIS. Mm-hmm. Where do they get this money? Well, they go up to Congress and say, well, we want to put a rover on Mars. It's going to cost $20 billion. NASA gets this $20 billion. They give us $100,000 in CGI and some videos and photographs. Everyone's happy, and they walk away with $20 billion. Now, my point is that NASA it's worth way too much money. They're getting billions. Flat Earth is completely counterproductive to this this is their main source of money. This is where we're getting all that black op money from. Is all the countries are doing it. They're setting up these fake space agencies and then funneling the money into their black ops department. Why would they risk that with flat Earth? Because, I mean, you got aliens coming, you got space invasions coming, you got all kind of lies you can tell the people. It's like I'm saying, it's completely counterproductive. I don't understand why they did that.
Okay.
It's almost like there's a second force there.
If they were trying to hide it, if they were trying to put the kibosh on the growth of flat Earth, 3 years ago, Google, who is as controlled by governments as anybody, YouTube, Google owns them, would not have promoted. They promoted flat Earth from the get-go.
Yep.
I found it on YouTube the first time. I was going through YouTube and it came up as a suggested video. I didn't hear about it, you know, off the street. Now I had already heard about flat Earth, but I'm saying when I decided, all right, I got to go and see what this is about, it was because I looked at the top of my thing and it came up as a suggested video. And ever since then, that's pretty much all that ever comes up in my suggestions, unless I literally go searching for how to fix my washing machine agitator or something, you know, then I'll get more videos about that. But I don't subscribe to channels. Flat Earth was promoted to me. No doubt in my mind.
Laurie, when I came into, and Thomas, when I came into flat Earth, I was like a lone voice in Britain. There were no flat earthers in Britain. And I'd got about 500 so-called friends on Facebook, and I spammed a lot about flat Earth, and a lot of them have become flat earthers. But if I look through the news feed when I first got into flat Earth, my Facebook news feed, and I don't look at it very often now, there was nothing about flat Earth apart from all the stuff that I was spamming everybody. There was absolutely nothing. If I go and look now, 50% of all the subject is flat Earth or flat Earth related. That's how it's changed. Obviously, I've got a lot of flat earthers as friends, but my friends list hasn't changed that much since then. But so many of them have become flat earthers. That's what the news is. The news is about, you know, the flat Earth, but most of the people on my friends lists are stuck on the false model. That's how sad it is. So I don't bother looking at it because it's sad.
Well, there's no way they're trying to hide the flat Earth.
I got a little story here to add in here that might shed some light on some, but because you reminded me of it when you said it. Your flat Earth just popped up one day, you know, and you're recommended. That's exactly how it did to me. I had never researched. I'd never even thought about a flat Earth. And when I pulled up my YouTube and I looked in the recommended, I seen Eric DeBay's video. Okay, so I start watching it, and to make a long story short, after a while, I'm convinced, and I start joining little flat Earth groups. Well, when I had first joined, there was an argument taking place between Paul Michael Bales and Eric DeBay. And what the argument basically turned out to be is stating that Eric DeBay only knows what he knows because Paul Michael Bales sent him a whole bunch of old books.
That's the story.
And that Eric read them. Right, so I'm thinking to myself, well, back when I first discovered a flat Earth, that's all you had was guys like Eric DeBay and Paul Michael Bales. That's pretty much it. And my whole thing is like, where did these books come from? Paul Michael Bales has got these books. It's like somebody just gave them to Paul. Paul reads them, realizes the Earth is flat, and he believes this model. They probably picked him because they realized, well, yeah, if he reads this, he'll go for it. Paul promotes it to Eric. Eric goes online with it. It blows up. Next thing you know, you got Mark Sargent, Tiger Dan 925. Who was that one guy that used to dress up in the gold armor? You remember that guy?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name. He actually made some pretty decent videos at the time, I thought. But yeah, it was absolutely a controlled draw. There's no question about it. Now my question is, why do they want us to know after all this time? I mean, you've got so much of a future ahead of you with space exploration. Why ruin it by telling the Earth? Now I understand why you put the Gleason out there, because the Gleason is an obvious straw man. You can throw the Gleason right in the middle of the flat Earth community, that anytime you need to take control of the flat Earth community, if it's getting out of hand, you can just go in there with your debunkers and just say, hey, and just pick it apart and make them look like idiots. Then the flat earthers will just be stunned, like, oh my gosh, I don't understand. Why was I just debunked? You know, my facts are true. Everything's right. This guy just hasn't done enough research. That's the problem. He just hasn't done research. Well, he probably doesn't have to do some research. A lot of this stuff is basic common knowledge, common sense. Yeah, so I don't really understand why they're doing. I think the reason being is a lot more malicious than we think. Because again, you're risking the biggest source of income that they have, which is their NASA. That's their biggest dirt money, their black money. You're risking having to rewrite all the history books, all the science books. Everything would completely break down. Their control over us would completely break away the moment the entire world realizes that the people controlling our world are liars and evil thieves.
All right, I have a response to that, and that is, if you are going to tell part of the truth, which is always what they do in controlled ops, you give them enough truth, enough information that it's plausible, and you withhold or redirect with the most important information. So what you give them is information that they could have gotten anyway. Okay, in other words, it's kind of already out there. It's already too far gone to hold back, which is kind of the thing that WikiLeaks does. There's already enough knowledge out there that now they're just going to give you what you already know. And then you go, see, I knew this. I do my research, okay? But they still are holding back the most important part. Now, you consider a couple of things here. One, they gave us all of this technology to play with because they wanted to make money off of us. They gave us P900s and fancy telescopes and computer apps and programs to figure things out with. And then because they gave it to us, they know humans are naturally curious. They're going to use what you give them to do something else with it. Okay. So they knew that sooner or later we would figure out space is, bullshit. And out of that $19 billion, if 90% of it is CGI, studio fakery, a few, you have a pretty small cast in the fakery department. That's not a huge budget. I mean, they're not actually going to Mars. They're not actually sending spacecraft, billions of dollars to spacecraft out into the universe. It's not actually happening. So it's not actually costing all this money. They have a certain amount of money that they can play where, have Lockheed Martin build us a satellite, a few $1 million, no biggie out of a $19 billion budget. You see what I'm saying? So, I think it's just in cahoots with AI rollout, 5G rollout, transhumanism rollout. All of these things are all culminating at the same time as flat Earth's coming out. It's all happening
Well, like
in sync. So in my opinion, it's all inextricably tied. It's part of a script.
I like that little magnet there, Lawrence. Is that a floating Earth?
I was just going to do a very brief experiment because I saw this came in my news feed. It's one of these globes that is suspended due to kind of magnetic.
Yeah, bismuth. Bismuth and a neodymium magnet
to see whether it starts. Obviously, I don't think it will, but
it's really too close.
The water.
Lawrence.
Okay, here's the water.
There you go, right there.
Right
there. That's nice.
The there's the globe. Is it going to stick to the globe?
No.
It might do. I don't think so, though.
A little thin film of it will, but.
Well, maybe if you spun it a little bit.
Watch out for your computer.
Yeah, don't get your desk all wet.
You're something else, Lawrence.
Oh, look, the water's falling off the globe.
It's
so they've got the technology to give us a globe, a miniature model globe suspended, but they haven't got the technology to make the water stick. So they need to go back to the drawing board.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the funny thing about it is that little item that you have right there is actually an example of electromagnetic theory in action right there. You're looking at ether in action, right, Kitty? Yeah, you need to get up off my desk, Kitty. You're looking at ether in action right there. There is nothing holding on to that globe. You can put a microscope there. There's no magical magnetic molecules. There's no anti-magnetism from the bismuth. There's nothing there. It's an ether field that's holding that up. Everything is surrounded by ether, just like the Earth. We live on a giant magnet. The upper half is the north. The lower half is the south. Actually, you know what? That's something we haven't discussed yet. Did you know that the north magnetic pole is actually at the south geographic pole? And the south geographic pole, or the south magnetic pole, is at the north geographic pole. So when you point your compass up north, it's not actually pointing to the north magnetic pole. It's actually pointing to the south magnetic pole, which is located in the geographical north. So we actually have our map upside down.
I've seen that many times. Sorry, I turned my camera off.
Because a north magnet is not attracting. You know, you can do the experiment with a magnet in your compass, and you see for yourself that the magnet it's like two norths on a magnet will not point. You know, they're not going to be attracted to each other, as you call it.
Right. It's what is that? Antipode or something.
Right. It's the south pole the south pole of your compass is attached, or the north pole of your compass is attached to the south pole, or the south magnetic pole of that. So that's why your compass, even though it says north, it's actually pointing to the south magnetic pole. Actually, that's just a little piece of trivia. I thought I'd go out there. If you want to understand more about that, research Ken Wheeler's Uncovering the Missing Secrets of Magnetism. He'll show you all about shake magnets and working with compasses and how to make homemade compasses and find the poles and all that neat stuff.
So, just briefly before we get off of the topic of flat Earth going mainstream, is there anything anybody else would like to add to help those out there who are trying to talk to people about flat Earth without trying to explain what it really is? And I, for one, want to just put it out there to, you know, the other YouTubers and video makers and whatever. All we've been asking for the last almost 3 years is, when you make your videos, you know, if it's your thing to try to keep explaining this circle thing, you're on your own. The rest of the people, this Masonic circle emblem that everyone is, the UN flag circle New World Order emblem that everyone's been using. Just drop it out. Just cut it out. Don't have to keep repeating the same thing. Repetition is a form of brainwashing. And that is not what we want free thinkers to do, is brainwash people or be brainwashed themselves. Does anybody agree with that? I can't see any reason why the other channels, the big YouTube makers, are so forceful about promoting this circle map model circling sun enough to the point of selling them at the Flat Earth conference, you know, all up and down the road there on the table. I don't understand why they're promoting it that hard when they almost all across the board admit, even those that do promote it, admit it's got a lot of flaws. Not some flaws. There's serious flaws. So why would you promote that? Isn't that the same thing they've been doing to us with globe imagery for our entire lives? I mean, we all see it every day, you know, MGM, or who is it? Universal Studios with the globe, and every news station has a globe spinning in the background, and globes all over all the marketing and branding companies for every product out there because we're global. So aren't we doing the same thing that they did? And their model's false, and that model's circle model's false. Why would we promote that? Because that's what the Flat Earth Society promotes. And I don't know a flat earther anywhere, a genuine flat earther anywhere, who won't say, oh, the Flat Earth Society, we all know that they're controlled opposition. They're the disinfo agency. Well, they're the first thing you're going to get on Google. When you just Google Flat Earth, you're going to get the Flat Earth Society on the first page. And that's the map and model that they've been promoting for what? Decades and decades and decades and decades, not a few years.
Yeah.
People still go to the Flat Earth Society website, and if you look on the forum on it, there are tens of thousands of questions and comments. So it is still attracting a lot of attention, you know, for those that are new into it. And you know, most of the discussions are based upon all the false stuff. And of course, they've got their emblem at the top of the page, which is the pizza pie map. So, you know, well, what is the difference? There's only one difference really between what the agents in Flat Earth, those pushing this false model, and the Flat Earth Society, and that's that 9 meters per second squared as a simulation for gravity. What other differences do they have? They've got the same model. Everything else is the same. So if the Flat Earth Society are controlled opposition, then you should yourselves consider yourself controlled opposition, because you're exactly the same as they are. And if you follow these channels, then I'm afraid you're stupid. It's as simple as that. You follow these channels, and I see you tuning in regularly to the, you know, the Sunday evening channels, 1,000 people watching it live. You people are stupid. It's as simple as that. That's what I can really say. You are stupid. And you have been controlled and indoctrinated, and you are holding us all back.
And that is Lawrence Wright's editorial opinion, not shared with every person on this chat, on this hangout, but you know, you're entitled to your opinion. And we've run that gauntlet for the last several years of, you know, doing everything from shouting to from the rooftops, calling people out, calling people shills and agents and everything else. It didn't work. It's not going to work. That's not the way to go. But and that's my opinion. To me, I would rather kill them with kindness now and try to, you know, gently work them off of where they're stuck. You know, it's kind of like, what was it in the movie with the kid that stuck his tongue to the flagpole, and the icy flagpole? And I would rather pour some warm water on there and try to get it loose than rip it loose, but that's, we all have our own style. But, you know, enough about that. Let's continue on doing what we do best, and that is continuing to ask questions, continuing to seek answers. We're actually trying, for the sake of flat earth and people out there everywhere, to put out the best information that we can. Years have gone by, and now people are out there saying the same things we've said, like they magically heard it somewhere. Maybe they figured it out for themselves. Maybe they heard me, Lawrence, Thomas, somebody else talking about it, and now it's their idea. I'm okay with that. I don't care. I don't need credit. Thomas doesn't need credit. Lawrence doesn't need credit. It's not about that. What it's about is trying to get as many people on the same page as possible. And that is not on the same page as the diamond and the Pac-Man and the whatever. It's on the same page of, we don't know how it works. We don't know what it is. We're still trying to figure it out, and we'll be figuring it out for a very, very long time, I'm sure. So
yeah, Laurie, we're not going to convert the cult members. They're not going to convert over. There's nothing we can do. All we can focus on are the new people coming in. All you've got to do is look at the comments. Yeah, on Jeranism Raw's broadcast of the debate that you had. You look at the comments and you know
I was afraid to, Lawrence. I already knew that I was not going to be well accepted within that camp. And
all right, well,
you know, if I was on video and my voice and my face was on video, if you told me that I had to ride into the camp and do it in person, and that probably wouldn't have happened. Not with that, not with an audience. You know, I could sit around the table all day long with people like Jaron and David Weiss and Darren Nesbitt, and, you know, and have a conversation. I'm completely okay with that. Did I get a little miffy sometimes? Sure, I did. Did Jaron? Did David? Did Darren? All of us did, a little bit here and there, because it's frustrating when, you know, you got four people trying to talk, trying to drive points home, you know, trying to win. I wasn't trying to win. That was never my intention. I don't think anybody ever really wins a debate, because here's what happens. If you already think this, your guy won. And if you already think that way, your guy won. Oops, sorry. Your guy will win, because you're going to use confirmation bias, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen in your head. The little voices in your head while you're hearing these debates going on, you're going to go, yeah, boy, he really got her. Ooh, and then somebody who knows me or believes what I have said something about, oh man, she nailed those guys. And they're all watching the same thing. I find that so incredible that I said last night about somebody making the comment about, you know, her voice sounds like fingernails on the chalkboard or something like that, nails on the chalkboard. And at the very same time, I get a message in my inbox on Facebook from a guy from like Croatia or somewhere who tells me, and your delivery was so smooth and you're confident and you sounded really good. And I'm thinking, now I know this guy's not coming on to me because he never has before. So what he heard and what this other guy heard are literally two different voices. I mean, I might as well have been Minnie Mouse, because that wasn't me that he was hearing, because he didn't like what I was saying, didn't like what I was, you know, impressing. And so what are you going to do about that? Nothing. There's nothing you can do about that. And I'm not going to change my personality just to have a debate with somebody. I'm a strong, independent female. Been that way my entire life. I have a lot of friends who like that about me. And those that don't like that about me, we're not friends. It's just that simple. It's no big deal. No big loss. I don't need 10,000 friends. I need like 5, and I got them. Well, I got more than that, but you know what I mean. So that's the way it is in flat Earth, and it's the way it is in politics and religion. You can take any topic, you can have it go. You can go and listen to a sermon. Somebody can say, "Oh, you got to come to my church. This guy is so good and so charismatic, and his message is just exactly what I've always thought and wanted to hear, and the way they should preach and everything." And you go, "Oh, okay." And then you go to that church and you go, "Really? That guy's a snore. Really? He's not even teaching, scripture. He's just, speculating." And, or whatever, like that. Same thing with politics. Oh, the left, they like their politicians. The right, they like their politicians. It goes that way across the board with every divisive thing. It's okay. We're not out to win the war. We're just going to win little battles here and there. And, eventually the truth wins out. Either it does or doesn't. But I really believe that it eventually does. Do you guys?
Oh, absolutely. And I got 2 things to add to and actually confirm what you said. And that's going back to the first topic. I've noticed that I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flat earth videos, and I'm seeing some really good videos. People are putting some great production time into it. They're putting money into it. But then all of a sudden at the end of it, even if it wasn't about the Gleason map, they shine this big spinning pizza right at the end.
I know.
And this is what we're talking about. This is the constant brainwashing. You present me with facts like, okay, I can see past the horizon with my telescope or whatnot. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, there's the
subliminal message.
Yeah, every single time you guys are making great videos, an hour worth of great facts, and you'll get, like 10 or 15 good facts to make your video around. And everything's just great. And then all of a sudden you got a circling sun, you got an ice wall, and this pizza pie. And I'm like, oh, you didn't have to go there. You had a great video, and then all of a sudden you just ruined it.
And then what happens? And then what happens? You can't share it because you can't promote what you're against, even if it's just that little subliminal bit at the end. You can't share it.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of times I will sit there and tell people, well, just ignore this or that. But yeah, I really don't like sharing videos like that because, again, it's promoting nonsense. And another thing you were talking about, cognitive dissonance in facts. And that is, we have a core belief system, and we already have answers already built in that will explain everything away, whether it's right or wrong. For instance, we know science says that a monkey can't evolve into a man. Well, I mean, that's what reality says. However, if you're a person who believes in evolution, you're going to have an answer for every single proof that I present to you. Even if I present legitimate facts, you're just going to tell me, oh, well, you haven't researched enough. You don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, you're quite uneducated. Go back to school. And they'll throw a few insults. And most of the comment will be nothing but insults and challenging your intellect. And I'm like, well, I just presented facts, numbers, reference sites, the whole 9, and all you got for me is, well, you're an idiot, you're uneducated, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, this is just too complicated for you to understand.
That's my favorite. It's a failure of our education system.
Yeah, and I'm like, insults are not facts, people. And unfortunately, they seem to think, well, if I say a witty enough response, an insult, people will laugh and then I'll win the argument. But yeah, my point is cognitive dissonance is set up in there. We don't like our core beliefs challenged whatsoever. And here's the thing. You just realized that the earth is not a ball. And that was just, your life was destroyed. Your whole reality was just destroyed at that. Your emotions and your mental state are very fragile and raw from recovering from the fact that you've been lied to, and been living in a state of ignorance all your life. You thought you lived on a ball. Now all of a sudden, here comes Gemini, and here comes Lori, and here comes Thomas Thompson, and everybody else, and they're going to kick that away again. They're going to say, "Oh, by the way, that AE map, that's wrong too." You know, it's like going up to a guy who just got beat up in a fight and then just sprinkling some salt on his wounds and give it a good rub and say, "Don't worry, you'll be just fine," and then walk away. I mean, that's what we're really doing now. And that's why I say do not promote that model if it's been debunked, because you're only going to make it harder for the person who is new to Flat Earth and they want to know the truth. If you go feeding them this model, they're going to swallow that stuff up because you just showed them the Earth was flat. The same way I swallowed it all up when Eric DeBay showed me the Earth was flat. You know, you can't show this, you know, you can't present this stuff. Look, the biggest ice shelf in the entire world is the Ross Ice Shelf, and it's only 372 miles. You can't go out there talking about there's no South Pole and there's no South Pole stars and there's this. You can't do none of it. You got to stick with what you can prove. You know, again, so when you make your videos,
here, that's for sure.
Yeah, stay away from that stuff because we're looking silly. Yeah, go ahead, Lawrence.
All right. Well, something came up a couple of weeks ago, and most of the viewers will not have seen this. Well, you won't be able to see if it's podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube, you will. Let me just share this little video with you. Or Laurie, I'll give it to you, Laurie. You show it, and then you can talk about it afterwards because you had a theory on it. Let me just grab it. Won't be a second. It's up here somewhere. Hang on. Where's it gone? Here we go. I'll send it to your Facebook page, Laurie.
Okay, I'm waiting. I'll get my microphone down here.
Here it comes, Laurie. So it's only a 3-minute clip, but it's very interesting. And you made a very interesting comment about this, which made a lot of sense to me. So if you want to just post this little video and let people watch it, then they might find it interesting.
All right, let me get it loaded. And stuff open. I need to shut a few things down. Screen share. Oh, nice space. Uh-oh, I think I locked up. Come on. Okay, here we go. May have to turn it up a little bit. Wow, why is everything running? So my poor fan's running like crazy. Start. Do you want it on full screen? Does that look better?
You've got to put the volume on, Laurie. The volume's turned off.
Well, I get that.
Norway, well, actually, the reflected glorious sunshine. Let me show you
Back to
something.
the start.
Way up there on the mountainside, you can see what is actually a series of.
Pardon me, Lawrence?
You wind it back to the start. You've started off 30 seconds in.
That is where it started up. So that must have been where it was when you shared it with me.
A small town in Norway is lighting up with excitement this morning. Rjukan is tucked in a narrow valley, and it never gets any direct sunlight in the winter, but that changes today. Mark Phillips watched as they threw the switch on the world's largest solar mirrors. Mark, you get all the good stuff. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Gail, Nora, Charlie. Well, we're standing here in the glorious sunshine in the middle of Norway. Well, actually, the reflected glorious sunshine. And let me show you something. Way up there on the mountainside, you can see what is actually a series of mirrors reflecting the sun down into the little town of Rjukan. Nature has not provided sunlight, but modern engineering has, but it's taken them 100 years. The mountains of Norway are a good place to generate hydroelectricity, but this far north and in valleys this steep, they're not a good place to get a suntan in the wintertime. For 6 months of the year, beginning in October, the sun is so low in the sky, it never reaches the valley floor where the town is. The founder of the town, a foresighted industrialist named Sam Ida, recognized the problem and put in a cable car to take the residents up the hillside and into the sunlight to keep them from getting a terminal case of cabin fever during the long, dark winter. Even with Norwegian stoicism, Karen Rowe, who runs the tourism authority here, says it could be a tough place to live.
If people get sun, they will be more healthy and they will work better.
And if they get shade and shadow and darkness, not so much.
Yeah, that's true.
But modern technology may now have solved the problem. Instead of bringing the people to the light, they've figured out a way to bring the light to the people. An array of mirrors has been installed on the hillside, programmed to track the sun across the sky and reflect it down into the town below. Well, not into the whole town, just into the town square. Still, that may be enough. It makes a difference. Even that little bit of sunshine in this whole big dark town makes a difference.
It makes a difference. This is the center of the town.
So here we are, and apparently it's worked. The sun is now flooding down here, but it was a touch and go thing this morning. You can control the mirrors, but you can't control the weather. For the longest time, there was cloud cover here. When we awoke this morning, the whole valley was full of cloud, and they stalled and they stalled, and they played music and they made speeches. And then finally, the clouds cleared, and the mirrors focused the light down here in the center of the town. A large crowd of people had gathered. They had a big party, and now they can celebrate that way for the next 100 years. Gail, Nora, Charlie.
All right, Mark Phillips.
For Mark Phillips, they said, let there be light.
But don't you find, though, you are in a better mood when you have the sun and the light?
Oh, I would be depressed with 6 months of no sunlight. Yeah.
Don't you think that too, Charlie?
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, I find I'm happier, get a better tan, all that good stuff. It's so important for a girl.
It is.
Yeah, so you were saying, Laurie, that about the mirrors creating an infinity effect where, you know, the light intensifies because one mirror's shining from one mirror to the other, then shining back, and it's going back and two, and it's creating a much bigger effect because of the way the mirrors are actually angled.
Well, and I also said that maybe that's kind of sort of what might be happening at the far north and the far south to make that circular effect of the sun going around in a circle. So what I find interesting too about that, Lawrence, is those people they don't actually have sun shining on them. They have the light of the sun. They don't have the heat. They don't have, I mean, I don't know if those mirrors would create, you know, proper photosynthesis or whatever, but the mood that you're in when you don't have any direct, you know, any sunlight coming in your eyes is, you know, people get seasonal affective disorder. It's called SAD. And if they don't have sunlight for months at a time. So I believe that it's, you know, the boost that these people are going to get from having that sun on them is they're going to see the sun, so, or the sunlight. But anyway, they had those mirrors, as you could see. It's kind of like the mirrors in a dress shop, where, you know, or a suit shop where you try on that, you know, the clothes. And they have this mirror angled like this and this one like this. And then the one in front of you is straight. And if you step close enough into the mirror, you can see not 360 degrees around. You know, does this mirror make my butt look big or any of that? But you can see enough of yourself, and you turn sideways and turn, you pretty much can see 360 with 3 angled mirrors. So there might be something to that. It certainly worked. I mean, they were able to put 3 mirrors up on the top of that mountain, and the sun's coming in from the back side, hits that, and comes down into the square.
Yeah, what do you think, Thomas?
I don't know. I was just listening to what you guys were both saying about it. Where is this city located at?
It's in Norway. There's another
Norway.
town that did it in was it Spain, Lawrence, that we also found?
It was Italy.
Italy. Yes. There's another town that's on the backside of a mountain in Italy that never gets any sun, and they did the same thing. They put mirrors up on the opposite mountain and shined it into the town. And it cost oh man, I don't remember. It was something like $1 million or something for the smaller version of it. And that town was only 250 people. The one in Italy. The one in Norway, I think, what did you read, Lawrence? It seemed like maybe it was something like 500 or 600 people was all.
Yeah,
so
not many.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal to money for that many people.
Now, I wonder how long that, well, I'm sitting there trying to think of the positioning of the sun. It's almost, the sun would have to be following, apparently they have the sun path marked out. No, I'm just doing mathematics.
Well, it took 100 years from the time the first guy thought about it.
Yeah, for it to actually come,
for it to actually come to fruition. So 100 years of not just gathering the money and the technology to make those big mirrors that big, because they're not mirrors. They're not glass. They're polished steel or something like that.
Yeah,
each one of those panels was several panels anyway.
I've got another little snippet. You won't need to play this one, Laurie, because there's no real sound on it. It's just visual.
Okay. Then you can show your own screen.
Imagine that you were a soul, you know, and you were going to get incarnated in a world somewhere, and you got no idea what world it is. But when you got there, you had to figure out where it was you were and what the lay of the land was. Let's just imagine that you, I'm going to share a screen now. That this is what you saw when you weren't born as a baby, you came down fully grown, and away you go. This is what you see. You just bear with me. Oops, what's happened to that? It's gone. Oh, there we go. This is me walking the dog.
That's flat.
Oh, that's you and Finn?
Yeah. Now, everywhere you look, it's literally pancake flat for miles and miles and miles. And of course, if you look at the lie of the land, it's horizontal. But where I am on the theoretical globe, that land should be pointing down, pointing up one way and pointing down the other, an angle of about 40 degrees. But it's pancake flat. So the point is, what more proof do you need? You know,
that's flat.
Where you are on an actual globe.
Well, that's almost as flat as the salt flats, or I guess as flat.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so where is this located, Lawrence?
This is in the north of England on the coast.
Really? There's a place that flat in England that big?
Oh, it goes on for miles, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Sometimes the tide goes out. The tide goes out so far, the sea is just the thin blue line, and all you can see really is sometimes the horizon itself is on the beach, because the sea goes out for miles.
Oh, really? So that thin blue line in the background is the water.
Yeah.
Huh. Amazing.
Yeah.
And you're at 40 latitude, 40 north?
No, if you want to work out, if you worked out the angle of the ground beneath your feet, you look at your latitude.
Oh, I see. It would be where your latitude is. Okay.
So where you are, if you're at 30 north, the angle of the ground beneath your feet should be 60 degrees.
Right.
Whereas where I am.
In sandy, flat Florida.
That's it, yeah. No, I'll come out of that now.
Yeah, I would have slid down the globe a long time ago if it was a globe.
Because, you know, it's pretty hard to use cleats on a 60-degree angle in sand. Hold on.
I've been walking sideways for almost 50 years now, 48 years.
That is the biggest proof, obviously, because
what state are you in,
why is the
Thomas?
Earth not flat? Is because you can
Ohio.
see it's not a ball. Because you can see it's not a ball.
Ohio's pretty darn flat too, right, bud?
Oh yeah. We have a lot of cornfields and wheat fields out here, no doubt.
Yeah.
One other thing to take note, just to throw out there, I thought of while we were all going over the videos, is our viewers can do this. If you get on Google Images, not the regular Google search, but Google Image search, and type in Flat Earth Debunked. And the reason I want you to do this is because when you go in there, you're going to see a lot of really smart globe earthers have created memes that completely destroy flat Earth. But when you look at every single one of these memes, every single one of them is the Gleason. There's not one square map. There's not one Lambert map. Not one Ayatollah map. No diamond, nothing. Only that Gleason. And then you will see page after page of nothing but examples of how that model is wrong. So if you don't, and here's what you can do. Generally speaking, each meme contains one fact that'll debunk it. Like say the flight from Santiago to Dallas, Texas. It'll have that. Now just take that fact, take that one fact that the meme says is true, and start and research that one fact. If it's true, then you collect that meme and see how many memes you can actually collect. See how much proof is actually in your flat Earth. Because if you think your Gleason model is right, then you can't be afraid to challenge it. So that's what I challenge you to do. I challenge you to go to Google Images and Google Flat Earth Debunked. And there's literally hundreds of memes there. All kind of problems. It's not just one or two things we're picking on. You know, we're not just trying to be the cool kids who are smart and know everything. No, this is a huge thing. There are hundreds and hundreds of problems with this projection.
It sounds like a new sport. Yeah. Debunk the flat Earth.
Yeah.
Meme wars.
There was one little debunk for the debate that you had, Laurie. This will only take a minute. And I'll just thresh out the implications of what your debaters were actually saying when we watch this. So only take them. There's no sound with it, so just bear with me. You've seen this a few times before, but this is a new one. Again, we're back at Casey Station. Now, they will have you believe that this is all actors. All these people coming out, all this footage, all these vehicles moving 365 days a year. They are all actors purely to the point to debunk the AE map. These people are all doing this to debunk the AE map because they, you know, that's what they need to do because it's so important. All these people coming out of these buildings and getting in these vehicles and moving around every day, 365 days a year at this station and all the other stations. They are all actors.
And it might not even be in Antarctica. It could be someplace else, right? Isn't that another argument?
Yeah, that's what they'll tell you. It's a hoax, but you've got 24 hours of light there now. You know, it never goes dark.
Is this
current? You don't have a midnight sun.
Oh, there it is. 18 November 2017. Okay.
There you go. There's your midnight sun.
Yeah, and there's the infamous black dot.
Yeah.
There is a midnight sun, and it'll be there for weeks and weeks now. It's not what some people tell you. It's just for a few days. It's for weeks on end that you're going to be seeing a sun at and beyond midnight.
And that camera,
at least a dozen.
That camera is facing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That camera is facing south, right, Lawrence?
Yeah.
So the sun is south of Casey Station.
Yeah, because the way I got
how can that ever be if the farthest south the sun ever goes is in Capricorn?
Yeah, that would be the north of Capricorn. That would be the north of Casey Station, then I believe.
No, it is not. The camera is facing south, Thomas. That's
That's the anomaly. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
The camera is
camera's
facing
more
south.
to
The sun is south of south.
Yeah.
Yeah, how is
Well,
that
it's
possible?
doing this. Wait, it's doing the same thing that the circle Earth people say that, oh, it's doing this in the North Pole. It's going around in a tight circle. And they're okay with that, but they're not okay with this. And this is real. This is what's happening. And
I've seen over a dozen.
and this is a current date. It's November 19th, 2017. It's already the 19th there? Yeah, because it's on the other side of the world. Not the globe, the other side of the flat Earth. But the point is, local Casey time, and you can click on if you go to, where is it? If you go to the map, is it Google Earth, and click on it and zoom in, you can see all of this in photography. That's where this is, and this camera is facing south. And they have this birthday sign. See the little sign in the front, right there in the front left, and they always put people's birthdays on there.
They do. Yeah, if you go to Google Maps, you'll see the opposite side of the building to what you can see here, and that's pointing north. So this has to be the opposite side of the building, so it has to be facing south. So you've got the sun, or what appears to be a sun, south of the South Pole. So yeah, I think it's some kind of mirrored effect to make this happen. And the same at the North Pole.
It's both. It's the same effect, both poles. I agree, Lawrence. Whatever it is, whether it's coming in on the Pac-Man diamond tip of the bottom and the top, it's either that, or it's got something to do with a reflection off of the firmament.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, I'm pretty good at coming up with what it could be, and I can't think of many more options than that.
And maybe the reflection is showing you the reverse side of the sun, and there's a black dot on the reverse of the sun, which is the filament or something.
Just don't know. And you know what? You can speculate all you want. It also could be that the black dot is overloading the center of the camera because it's a reflection, and not because it's the actual sun.
Yeah.
Because we know the sun does not go south of the Tropic of Capricorn. So why is it going south of Casey Station? Same way the sun does not go north of the Tropic of Cancer. So how can it be circling the North Pole? It's the same question.
Yeah. It's an optical effect of some sort.
I mean, if people think they can see the sun in that tight of a circle in the Arctic, and it's not any closer than the Tropic of Cancer from there, how can that be?
Yeah,
I can't see it that close.
There was that doctor who was down at Casey Station, and he wrote a book, and his first impressions of when he got to Antarctica, he said it was like being in a hall of mirrors. So there you have it.
I remember that.
Never a truer word spoken in jest, but that could well be the effect. There's some mirrored effect to give you 24 hours of daylight.
Well, why do you think I think about that plopping a pyramid shape over the top of the diamond? That bottom corner, as the sun's coming across Cancer, it's deflecting off those sides and looks like it's coming around in a circle. That's the closest I can come up with. And the same thing's happening in the north. No, the north doesn't have anything on the south. It's just different, plus the north in the summer, almost all of that ice breaks up at the polar cap or whatever they call it, and it's mostly water up there, because I have seen documentaries of the Arctic. You know, the polar bears start running out of ice to fish off of, hunt off of, and they have to come back to the land farther south than they want, because there's no polar ice out there to float around on. And if you look at Google Earth and you look down on the top of Earth, they don't lie. It's water. They don't show a big cap of ice like they do on the Antarctica. So it's as far as I'm concerned, it's just logical conclusion. And until there's evidence to say that's a stupid conclusion, that's the path that I've been led to. It's like what's the game Clue? The butler did it with the candlestick in the library, you know? Oh, that sounded kind of bad, didn't it? Sorry.
Well, for 1 second, can you pull up that video, that famous, infamous North Pole video, 24-hour sun? Because the reason I want to see that, because we want to see exactly how this sun moves, because that's the best video we have. And it's like you said, what's happening in the north is exactly what's happening in the south. How the sun acts when it travels on Capricorn is the same exact way it acts when it's on Cancer. So there's not going to be any difference.
You want the one for 43 seconds, 217, 122 is the Arctic midnight sun. Here we go. Let me play that. Let me stop it. Let me do a share screen.
Yeah, that's the one right there. Ask yourself, is this staying at the same level? Does it look like it's circling at the same level? It would be staying at the same level, just going in a giant circle. You are actually, now see how it's going down towards the ground? That's not just your line of sight converging. It's not going in a circle, it's arcing. See, you didn't even see it go below the horizon, so you can't say it's the limit of your eyes, because it didn't even go below the horizon.
No, it doesn't.
It disappears. It literally stops right there, and then
it's two films fused together. It's got to be.
Well,
I mean, both times it comes down and then comes back up at the same mountain.
Look again, right here. It doesn't go underneath that horizon, and it doesn't. It's not. It did a tight turn there. It did a very tight turn right there. Now it's going perfectly straight. It's arcing, going on, but it's going perfectly straight.
Well, the celestial plane is set at 23.4 degrees to the surface of the Earth, and that's exactly what it looks like.
Right. Exactly. That would explain it perfectly.
So that's a stitched together. That's a stitched together film, is it not? Does everybody say this is real?
Even if it's not, either way, it's not a circling sun. That's not what you're seeing here. But yeah, I would say it's probably a stitched together. I would have to pay attention to the clouds more carefully.
It's an arcing sun. It's arcing up.
Yeah, that was really my point of why I wanted this played.
It's an ecliptic. You're seeing an ecliptic.
If it was, when the sun is in Cancer, that's when it's at its highest point in the sky, and when it's in Capricorn, that's when it's at the slowest. So you should be seeing high above your head a sun going in a perfect circle. And that's not what you see. You do not see a perfect circle there. You see two very sharp turns on both ends. You see it arcing real hard on one end, then going, from east to west, and then all of a sudden it arcs real hard and comes back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So again, their own video that they claim is proof of a circling sun is not a circling sun at all.
So Lawrence, in comparison, the sun has a very low arc in Antarctica at Casey. Can you see it? Have you watched? And I've watched so many arcing sun videos. It's unbelievable. But so I can't remember if it was McMurdo was the other station that showed what looked like a circling sun.
There's very few way. A lot of them you can't actually see the sun. I don't know which.
You have to watch. Yeah, you have to watch it in real time. Like right now, it's summer there, right?
Yeah. I mean, they could be hiding something. I found a video the other day, and I was trying to find it again because I wanted to show it today. And it was a video. It was a time lapse of the midnight sun in the northern pole, and what was happening? The sun would get so far across the sky, and then it'd get about 75% of the way across the screen, and it immediately flicked back to the other side. I've got to show that, but I've got that many windows.
Boy, if you could find that, that would be a fun. That would be you need to download it.
Yeah,
you can find it again.
I've got one more little bit snippet, and then I haven't really got much more information. Can I show this little one?
All right.
Okay, so we'll share this. You've seen it before, but the audience hasn't seen it. So what we've got here, okay. What we've got here, we've got 3 boats on the fictitious globe, and they're all going to circumnavigate the world. We've got boat A, which is starting off on the equator, boat B starting off on the Tropic of Cancer, and boat C starting off at the Arctic Circle. They are all sailing, according to Google Earth's navigation, they are all sailing due west. And at some point, they're all going to intercept. And when they do, technically, all their compasses will be showing sailing due west, even though they're actually sailing in completely different directions, which is conclusive proof that Google Earth is a pile of poo.
A pile of poo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine Captain Boat A meeting up with Captain Boat C at the Pink Dot. Say, hey, how you guys doing? Oh, good. Which way you going? West. Wait a minute, I'm going west too. How could we be crossing paths?
Yeah.
And the same thing with boat B crossing boat C. Which way you going? I'm going west, going 270, bearing 270. Well, how come we are too and we're crossing paths at this steep of an angle?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Which proves conclusively that you could not navigate on a globe because you wouldn't have a clue where you were going.
No,
could you?
No, not if you were going by a compass bearing.
You couldn't use a compass.
Which they didn't. We know that, you've seen the old manuscripts and stuff from sailors. They didn't use just compasses. They used sextants and what's the other one? I can't remember. Love a scope. What that is, I can't remember.
I mean, the original purpose of the compass was it wasn't for the cardinal directions. The compass was for winds. They used to navigate by the direction of the winds because that was a really reliable guide to the direction that they needed to go in. They were called the windrows, and the cardinal directions followed on
came from the windrows. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll come off that.
All right. And so that's another one of those. You can't use globe directions to. I mean, when was the last time you saw anybody drive by in a car and had a little wobbly globe on their dashboard? Or, I mean, people don't carry globes around. They carry around flat maps to get to places. People think that, but they think that Google Earth is real
even though it is a collection of a bunch of flat images, right? When you zoom into Google Earth, part of it's just made up. When you zoom in only so far, there's like these funky fake trees and stuff like that. But when you get close enough, it is literally a photograph. And they've just stitched all these photographs together. But that's for small areas. When you start to zoom out, it immediately becomes a computer-generated composite. So it's not real, guys. That whole Google Earth thing is, you can't use that to try to plot a course because it's not going to work. All right. Yeah. So I've said what I need to say for this hangout, and I think we'll wrap it up. And thanks both of you guys for hanging out again 2 nights in a row. That's a record for us, especially since we kind of been on a break for a little while all those other things were happening. So please find Thomas on the Flat Earth News on Facebook. It's a Facebook group page. And you can find Lawrence on the Flat Earth Conspiracy channel, or Flat Earth Conspiracy Facebook group. He's an admin there, or moderator. And you can listen to this in podcast anytime you want. Go to iTunes, put in Flat Earth Conspiracy, and download the MP3. So thanks, everybody. Do you guys have anything you want to add here at the end? Are you good?
I'm good.
Check the info on the Great Circle routes, folks. Go and check it out for yourself, and then you've got some fantastic ammunition to, if you actually get debating people who insist that they're living on a globe.
Right. Yeah, you probably missed that at the beginning. Go back to the beginning when this thing archives, and you can watch the beginning presentation if you came in late.
Yeah, and when you're making your videos to teach globe earthers about the flat Earth, stay away from presenting a model. Stick with the basic facts that you know you can prove. You know, horizon, reflection on water. There's lots of tests you can do, lots of tests they can actually perform that don't cost much money. Stick to these basics. Stop trying to promote these false models. Or if you're going to promote a new model, you know, say, hey, this is my opinion. And that's the first thing I say about my model. Yes, I promote the Diamond and I promote Pac-Man, but I'm the first guy to say I do not know. This is what I prefer. This is what my research is leading. But I can't prove it yet. It's just what I believe. But what do I know? I know the Earth is flat and stationary and intelligently designed. So that's
there
the message.
Yeah. All we really have is the shape of the, you know, we think we've got something that is the shape of the plane that we're on, but we don't know how it's together, how the east and west join up again somewhere. We don't know that. It's pure speculation, but I'm sure somebody someday will figure it all out and tell us in a way that we can understand it better, and then it becomes more presentable to the masses.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for the chat. Thank you, as always, to Jason Campbell for moderating the chat. And we'll see you soon. Don't have a next date for a show, but stay tuned. Thank you. Flat Earth Conspiracy signing out.